Hello again everybody. My eye's still a bit swollen, so I thought I'd just stick with the sunglasses while I talk about this book. This one is I'm Glad My Mum Died by Jennette McCurdy. It's the front cover of the book. It's quite a striking cover, seeing Jennette with the urn and the glitter coming out. I read this very quickly. I read this in about 2.5 days, I think. I was working, I think I could very easily could have just sat down and read this all in one go. The way it's written is very, even though it's a difficult subject matter, the way it's written makes it very easy to read and keep going. So I'll read essentially the blurb, what it's about, and then I'll go through my feelings reading this book. Jennette McCurdy was 6 years old when she had her first acting audition. Her mother's dream was for her only daughter to become a star, and Jennette would do anything to make her mother happy. So she went along with what Mum called calorie restriction, eating little and weighing herself 5 times a day. She endured extensive at-home makeovers while Mum chided, "Your eyelashes are invisible, okay? You think Dakota Fanning doesn't tint hers?" She was even showered by Mum until age 16 while sharing her diaries, email and all of her income. In I'm Glad My Mum Died, Jennette recounts all this in unflinching detail, just as she chronicled what happened when the dream finally came true. Cast in a new Nickelodeon series called iCarly, she's thrust into fame. Their mum is ecstatic, emailing fan club moderators and getting on a first-name basis with the paparazzi. Jennette is riddled with anxiety, shame and self-loathing, which manifest into eating disorders, addiction and a series of unhealthy relationships. These issues only get worse when, soon after taking the lead in the iCarly spin-off Sam and Cat alongside Ariana Grande, her mother dies of cancer. Finally, after discovering therapy and quitting acting, Jennette embarks on recovery and decides for the first time in her life what she really wants. Told with refreshing candour and dark humour, I'm Glad My Mum Died is an inspiring story of resilience, independence and the joy of shampooing your own hair. So this book is 320 pages in non-fiction, in autobiography, memoirs, biography, celebrity, health and fitness, parenting and families, lifestyle, well-being and relationships. This ebook was released at 8th of August 2022. I have had this on my reserve for quite a while at this point. I think there's only so many copies of it on the server, which is why it takes so long and why you have to return it. I can't believe it took this long for me to read it, but I have heard all about different parts of it, obviously online and through social media. It was hard to read, and at times I almost forgot I was reading somebody's memoir, because the way it's written, it does kind of feel like you're reading a novel. It's been written in a way where you feel like you're with Jennette at each period of her life. I'll admit I was an older person watching iCarly. I think iCarly started when I was about 18. It started in 2007, yeah, so I was 18 when I was watching it, which I don't regret watching it, because like I was watching stuff like Wizards of Waverly Place, I was still watching Disney Channel stuff, the stuff that was targeted to kind of a more family audience, not just the kids. Admittedly, I watched it probably more for Spencer, but I thought that Jennette McCurdy was absolutely brilliant. I thought her character was hilarious on it, and looking back now, it's such a shame that she feels so embarrassed about her previous work, because I feel like she has a lot of people looked up to her, and Miranda Cosgrove and Nathan Kress and the people on the show, and you know, the kids that grew up watching her. Because I know for me, watching like Christy Carlson Romano's podcast and seeing what other Disney kids were going through, not just the Nickelodeon kids, realising what they were going through as we were growing up and watching them, and you know, looking at stuff like what Raven Simonier was going through growing up on That's So Raven and Lisa Vanderpool and stuff. Like, you're hearing so much more these days of the kids that kind of survived these networks, and Jennette confirming what a lot of people have thought about the creator, Dan Schneider. I mean, as I'm filming this, it's just been announced that a documentary is coming out about Dan Schneider and Nickelodeon and everything, and just seeing so much of the rumours about him confirmed in this book is just, I just can't believe there's so many people protecting him, and people still are. The fact that Jennette confirms that while making Sam and Cat, there were points when he wasn't allowed on set with the kids. He had to be in a completely separate room and had messages sent through assistant directors to the actors, and it's just like, when a whole network is protecting somebody like that, you do feel completely alone. Obviously this isn't just about her growing up on iCarly, but that has a lot to do with it, because her mother forced her into that career. You know, as I said, I was 18 watching iCarly, and I think even then there were some things that you were just like, yeah. And now looking back on that and knowing what she was going through in regards to the relationship with her mother and the abuse she was receiving from her mother, and how that did create a disconnect for her, because for Jennette it was just the normal, and the fact that it wasn't until after her mother died and she entered therapy and she realised what she'd gone through and the abuse she received. I think it really does tell you that a lot of abuse victims don't actually realise what's happening and what they're going through. Yeah, it's just so eye-opening, and there were so many points when I wanted to reach through the pages of the book and just give Jennette a hug. Some of the things that she shared, I think she was incredibly courageous in writing the book, especially in regards to talking about her time with her mother and what her mother did to her and the relationship that she had with her. And then also talking about how it was for her growing up on TV sets. I mean, she doesn't mention this specific appearance in the book, but like, I remember when she made an appearance on Will and Grace. I remember that episode. It was the Sound of Music episode of Will and Grace, where Grace goes to a Sound of Music sing-along. And Jennette was one of the kids in that, and she had a speaking role, if I remember correctly. And so, even though that wasn't included in the book, it just reminds me of just how much she did as a child. And she goes through different jobs that she did where she was she was ostracised from the Mormon church. And at the same time, her family was also kind of leaning out of it anyway. But because she was growing up and she was doing lots of things as a kid where she was playing quite bad characters, you know, like child murderers and things, and Jennette and her mum carried on saying, well, she's only playing one, she's not actually doing this. I think there is a difference between playing one and being religious and all this sort of stuff. I finished this a couple of days ago, and so I'm still kind of processing the book. I have seen that she has got a deal to write another memoir, and also to write a fiction book as well. It would be interesting to see where she would go with another memoir based on where this book finishes, because you're just there thinking, what else is there? Or was she only skimming the surface with some of the things that she wrote in this book, like her childhood and how she grew up and how she looks back on that life now? Because it seems she's always been interested in writing. In this book there's a section where she talks about writing a story about two friends that set their parents up, and she presented the script as a kid to her mum, and her mum was just like, oh, that's the Parent Trap, and just completely just didn't look at it. And it was just like, yeah, her mother was definitely an interesting person. And the fact that Jennette does in the book confirm that there are times when she still misses her mum, I think, because she grew up with her mum telling her that they were best friends, and so it's obvious that her mother was actually quite a lonely person under it all. It's one of those things where it's just like, you can read from this book and get that her mother was abusive. It's one of those things where it's like, there's still that grey area, and I know that seems horrible to say in regards to this book, but you know, things are never just black and white. And it's obviously that her mother went through something as well. And I can completely understand why Jennette would be glad that her mother died, because it spurred on so much in regards to Jennette's life in figuring out the abuse that she did receive. Obviously, she's grown up into a wonderful young woman who is so incredibly wise. It's an interesting one to talk about when you're talking about somebody's memoir, because obviously this is their real life. They went through it. And there were some parts of the book when I was reading it, I was just thinking, I can't believe she shared that. In a case of just like, I thought she was just incredibly courageous and brave. There were so many things, but it was just like, she did not have to share that. And she did. And she shared that for a reason. And it was weird, because as she was talking about things, it was like, oh, I remember that. And then I'd be looking up pictures from certain points, and it was just like, I cannot believe what she was going through at that point. Like when she talks about being on vacation with her then boyfriend that her mum didn't know about, and it was just like, I swear I remember those pictures where she was caught in the sea with her boyfriend. And then you realise what she was going through at that point when she realised that she'd been caught, Those pictures are still on the internet. They're still on the Daily Mail of the day that she went out with her then boyfriend. Her mother didn't know about him. She'd been hiding him for about a year. And then, was it just at the end of iCarly, I think, that those pictures came out? It's weird how you remember things. And then realising that because she was caught by the paparazzi, she then went and, I think her boyfriend had put her phone in the safe after she had a phone call with her mum. It was just like, no, you don't need to look at this. And then when they finally got the phone out of the hotel room safe, she had like a million missed calls and messages from her mum. She was just like, what have I done? I can't imagine having that kind of, and that comes from a complete place of privilege in regards to my relationship with my parents. But I can't believe everything that she went through, and the fact that she is still standing, and her talking about how she dealt with because when she talks about when she realised she was growing up and she was going through puberty, and she realised that she couldn't play all the little kids anymore, that her mother was trying to force her into those younger roles. And then when Jennette went to her mum and just said, what do I do? Like, I'm growing boobs, like I am growing up. And her mum was just like, well, we can talk about calorie restriction. And it was just like, I just can't believe what Jennette's mother put her through. I'll admit, after reading this, I was just like, this is a book that I would pay for. Because obviously I read a lot on my library app, and I know that libraries and the apps that they use, they do work out to give like the royalties back to the author. But every so often you come across a book where it's just like, I might have read this on my library, but this is a book that I would proudly buy and put on my bookshelf. I feel like when it comes to biographies, I am more likely to reread a biography than I am a fiction book, and this is one that I probably would read again, because I feel like there's so many layers to what Jennette shares. So I'm sure there'll be other stuff that I will pick up on as I'm reading through it. I'm sure there'll be certain sections where it's just like, I can't believe I may have missed something when reading it, because I admit I was like rereading things. When she talked about certain things, I'd look stuff up, and because even though there are times when it just like, because of the way it's written, you almost feel like you're reading fiction, and then she would like name drop somebody, and it was just like, this is a real person who worked with these people. Like when she talks about like her relationship with Ariana Grande when she was filming Sam and Cat, and talk about like Miranda Cosgrove and the creator, who we all know who that's talking about. Like when she talked about her jealousies of Ariana, with the fact that Ariana was able to continue her music career while they were making Sam and Cat stay and hold the fort. Like there was a whole episode where she was just talking to a box because Ariana had been approved to go on tour or something. The fact that she was promised a directing thing on Sam and Cat and was told that somebody else had said that they wouldn't, it was just like, it's one of those things where it's just like, also you're seeing it entirely from Jennette's point of view, so you don't know everything that was happening around that. All we know is that she was told that a co-star didn't want her to direct, and I think everyone's gone into that assumption that it was Ariana. Through the pages of the book, I think you can make assumptions about the things that were happening at the time, and when she's talking about how she was told that she couldn't direct because a co-star didn't want her to, and it was just like, was this Nickelodeon pitching the girls against each other? Or did Ariana really not want Jennette to direct an episode? And so I think it's one of those things where it's just like, you never know what to believe in these things anyway. Especially in regards to, I don't know how to word this. At this point, nobody has come out and said, no, her mother didn't do this. Her brothers have stood up for her, other family members, her friends have stood up for her. So it's obvious that she's not going to lie about something like that. And I'm not saying that she's lied about anything in this book, but for a network that, especially when it comes to Dan Schneider, I wouldn't be surprised if people were trying to pit Ariana and Jennette against each other, because they continue to do so. It's like even in regards to Victoria Justice, people still like to pit women against women, and so we don't know what happened there. We only have one side of the story from Jennette, and nobody else has shared what actually happened. A lot of the time it's like there's one side, that side, and then you've got the truth somewhere in the middle. And I wouldn't be surprised if Ariana and Jennette were pitted against each other, and it was elevated by the fact that they were giving Ariana everything that she wanted and not giving Jennette anything. Because when Jennette was proposed the spin-off, she was told it was just going to be her show. She thought it was just going to be Sam Puckett. And then they were just like, oh no, we're going to bring Ariana in, we're going to merge the two shows, and so it's not just your show, it's yours and Ariana's show. And at that point, Ariana's career was completely taking off. So at that point, Jennette knew that Ariana was on her way to superstardom with the album, and the fact that Ariana was getting preferential treatment from Nickelodeon as well.
Hi everyone, just after editing that section, I just thought I'd just clarify a little something, because obviously I am not questioning anything that Jennette has written. I'm more questioning the network in their response to Jennette directing, and I'm just there thinking, were they just giving her an answer, or were they actually trying to pit Jennette against Ariana? Because Ariana was already getting the preferential treatment, and so I just wondered how much Dan Schneider and Nickelodeon itself were targeting Jennette with the conversations they had with her. I do talk a little bit more about Nickelodeon in this video, so yeah, I'll stop there. But I just wanted to clarify that this was me questioning the creator and Nickelodeon more than I was questioning Jennette.
There's just so much to unpack. I just can't believe what she's been through, and I just felt so sorry for what she's been through, and I'm so glad that she's come out the other side of it, an incredibly courageous, brave young woman who is taking back her life after everything that she's been through in regards to the abuse she was put through, the career that she didn't want to have, and just coming out the other side of that and being a spokesperson for people who need that voice in their lives. I just think that Jennette is just so incredibly brave. I hope she is able to move on in a way that works out for her. I'm glad my mum died. Jennette McCurdy. Just an incredibly powerful memoir. Obviously, with the conversation around child abuse, please do your own research if you have not read this book into what you think you can handle. But ultimately, this is well worth the read. I just can't believe what she's been through. My heart goes out to her and her family and her friends for everything that they were put through. If you have read this memoir and you want to discuss anything, just please talk civilly to each other in the comments. But yeah, I just think Jennette is an incredibly courageous young woman. And as I said, I wanted to read through the pages and just give Jennette a great big hug when she talked about her anorexia and the bulimia, and I mean, it even starts at the very beginning of the book with the moment when her mum passed away, and no, it actually doesn't, that's a different, I mean, it starts at the beginning of the book with Jennette and her family around her mother, and realising that her mother wasn't going to wake up, and so Jennette, they all say different things that they think will wake up Deborah McCurdy, and Jennette's attempt is saying that she reached her goal weight, and she's just there going, if that doesn't wake up my mum, nothing will. So her relationship with food is definitely a big part of the book, mainly because her mother started it. That feels like a really bizarre way to say it, but it was her mother that kind of got into her head that calorie restriction was the way to go in regards to the roles that she was getting and trying to play younger. Even though it covers such dark material in regards to what Jennette went through, you do have your moments of laughing with her at the funny things and crying with her through the hard things, and as it's almost as if you can see Jennette coming to terms with what happened. I was having a conversation with my mum about this book and kind of what child stars are put through generally, and the fact that it was announced for me at the time of filming this about a week ago or so about this documentary about Nickelodeon and Dan Schneider, and it was just like, this feels like a long time coming. The fact that Jennette turned down, what was it, $30,000 from Nickelodeon to keep quiet, and so And it just makes you very aware that other people took that money. Other people on the network would have taken that money, and that's the reason why we haven't heard from them. And that's not to call out anyone in particular on Nickelodeon, but I just think all you have to do is listen to the silence from certain people and to understand that they will likely never talk. Like, if that were me, at this point, if I'd seen a co-worker that had done that and I'd taken the money, I would go off and donate the money and talk. And just be honest. That's the point when you come out and say, yes, I accepted the money, not to talk about it. And I'm now deeply ashamed that I did that based on seeing what other people went through. And then I would go and donate the money to a worthy cause and then talk about it and stand up for that person. But that's coming from somebody who has not lived through that. I would have great respect for the people who did take the money if they came out and said, I have now donated all the money that Nickelodeon gave me, and I'm going to stand in solidarity with the people who were treated like shit. Because the fact is, though, the people who took the money are likely victims themselves, or survivors themselves, because it wasn't just Jennette going through it. We have heard from other people who were on Nickelodeon how they were treated, and so we know it wasn't just like one or two people that were targeted, they were all in the same boat. Reading the book and all that reminded me that Dan Schneider had a YouTube channel, which is still up, even though he no longer works for Nickelodeon, where he would film behind the scenes the stuff that he was working on. So there are still behind the scenes videos on YouTube from Dan Schneider's old YouTube channel. It hasn't been taken down at the time of filming this. I don't know if at some point it will, or if it's just an account that nobody has access to. But I would have thought that someone like him would be able to get into that account eventually, or get YouTube to take it down. But people have been using that YouTube channel as evidence of what he was doing, because it shows clips from behind the scenes of iCarly, of Victorious, and other stuff that came after that, which admittedly I did not watch. But yeah, so the fact that Dan Schneider was let go by Nickelodeon, and the fact that he technically wasn't fired, I think he was encouraged to leave. But the fact that Jennette does talk about Dan not being allowed on set for Sam and Cat, it just tells you how many people have been protecting him. I am greatly intrigued by the documentary that's coming out about him, because admittedly when I used to watch those YouTube videos of him filming the kids behind the scenes, I always got weird vibes of Dan Schneider. I always thought that he had a weird relationship with the actors, and I will admit that after reading the book I did go and find a couple of those old videos, just wondering if they were still there, and they are at this point in time when I'm filming this. Jennette McCurdy is an incredible young woman, and I'll admit there was a TV series that she talks about that she worked on for Netflix, which I had never heard of before, and so it actually got quite good reviews. It's called Between, which is on Netflix, and it was Netflix and another company, which I can't remember the name of off the top of my head, but I've actually got that lined up on my to-watch pile, because I want to... I heard that Jennette was actually very good in it, and so I thought I would check it out because it sounds very interesting. So I am going to give that show a go, and even though she now looks back on a lot of her acting work and she's not the most proud of it, I do still think that, despite the fact that it was her mother's choice to do it, I think that Jennette has an incredible talent, and I just hope that she has happiness. Thank you for watching. It always feels weird to end a video after talking about something with quite a heavy subject matter. If anybody does want to talk about how they felt reading Jennette's memoir, you can have a little chat in the comments. Just please be respectful of each other and of Jennette. Obviously she's never going to see this video at all, but yeah, I just ask people to be respectful if they are going to talk in my comment section. And yeah, I just send out love to Jennette and anybody who watches this video. And yeah, as I said, with the subject matter, you know, she talks about her eating disorders, she talks about the abuse that she received at the hands of her mother and Dan Schneider, and everything else that she went through is incredibly powerful. And I definitely feel like this is something I could reread. Jennette McCurdy. I'm glad my mum died. She has quite a dark sense of humour, which I appreciate from her. Yeah. So thank you so much for watching. If you have any other memoirs that you recommend as well, please put it in the comments. I do read everything. If you do enjoy my videos and you do like me talking about the books that I'm reading, the films that I'm watching, just my little singing Sundays occasionally, you can subscribe if you want. You don't have to, but it has been lovely to see the numbers growing. I can't believe that people are admitting to watching my videos to the YouTube algorithm, so thank you very much for that. But yeah, so I just wish you all love, stay safe. I will see you next time with another video. I love you all.